And that is a shot.
Alright. Hey.
Hey, there we go. And this is a quick little DIY sit-down video setup. Not too bad. We've literally been spending the past like hour and a half setting up the new desk. We are in the new apartment here on the north coast. Busy week. We've been setting a lot of stuff up, sort of just getting stuff ready, as you do when you move into a new apartment. I wanted to film a video, so I had to have a setup. Christina is also here.
Hello.
Obviously, I didn't turn all those lights on by myself. But yeah, we have been sort of messing around, getting things set up, and we needed to sort of a quick little setup to be able to do a video, and this was what we've come up with. Still a work in progress, and yeah, it will probably change each video until we figure out what way we want to have it. So yeah, hopefully this sounds alright. We've got the mic up here this time, just above camera, so hopefully it sounds good and all that stuff. Also, we made sure to bring our favourite mugs up. Mine turns out to be this Canadian one. If you've been watching the videos for a while, you've probably seen this mug quite a few times. If you've been watching our videos for a while, you will also know that when we're out taking photos, doing our photo vlogs and all that stuff, we do like to send the drone up and get some shots, whether that's photo or video, pretty much every time we go out to take photos. Compared to like 2 or 3 years ago, drones are actually pretty affordable now. We have the DJI Mavic Mini 2, and I'm sure some of you guys might have a drone as well, might have tried out some photos with it, may have tried some video, and we've got a few questions on the videos where we've took drone shots saying how did we frame that, how did we take the photos and stuff, and we thought we would just run through the process, give the settings we use, and sort of what we'd be thinking when we send the drone up and try to get those photos that you might have seen. I feel like this room might be a little bit echoey, so apologies for that. Like I said, bit of a work in progress. So first of all, some of you might be wondering how we even know where to go when we're getting drone photos. How do you like plan to go somewhere and get a nice drone shot? And to be fair, most of the time we don't really plan much. We know a location that we kind of want to go out and take photos with our camera, and we normally send the drone up and sort of fly around and see if we can spot anything. But on some occasions, if we know we're going somewhere in particular, we do use Google Earth, which you can use to literally almost plan exact compositions and photos. On Google Earth, you can obviously just go wherever you want. You can see mountains, it's 3D, so you can really plan shots. And sometimes if we know, like I said, we're going to a certain location, we'll do that and figure out when we get there what the best angle might be, because the drone batteries aren't that great and you don't really have that much time, especially if you're doing photo and video. So if you're going somewhere in particular, maybe go on to Google Earth, take a little spin around, make sure you're in 3D mode and see what there is. So when it comes to actually sending the drone up, taking the actual photo or figuring out what way you want to frame something, there's a few things that we do each time to make sure that we get the best results we can at that time. Obviously, one of the main ones being the aspect ratio you want the final picture to actually be. So do you want it to be a 4:5 for Instagram? Do you want it to be a landscape shot? Do you want to take a Pano photo? When you're up there with the drone flying around, you want to kind of look and see what might work best. We've done a variation of different shots throughout videos. It just depends what the scene is and what we think will work best at the time. So you want to figure that out obviously first. And then when it comes to settings, there is a few things that we make sure we kind of keep the same or as close to the same for each photo to get the best results. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you lock your white balance. This applies for both photo and video, because if you're just flying around and getting different clips and the white balance is changing all the time, it's going to be really annoying when it comes to editing. And if you're taking photos, for example, a Pano or stitching photos together, if all the white balances are different, it's just not going to work. The next thing is you're going to want to make sure that you're in manual exposure, so you can adjust all the settings and lock them whenever you get the settings you want for the photo. We make sure that we keep the ISO as low as possible, because especially the Mavic Mini and the other smaller drones have a very small sensor, so they don't deal very well with noise. So keep your ISO as low as possible, ideally at 100. Next thing is the shutter speed. We try to always keep it above 160, 180th. We try to keep it as high as possible, because the drone is up there. Yes, it looks still when you're looking through the like monitor or your phone when you're flying it, but it is moving around trying to keep still. So the lower your shutter, the more chance you're going to have motion blur. So try and keep your shutter as high as possible. We've shot as low as 180th, maybe 160th, and it's turned out okay. but those weren't on windy days at all, so try and keep it as high as possible and you'll get a sharper image. Another thing we do for most of our drone shots, I would say, is we use the AEB mode, which I believe stands for auto exposure bracketing, and that takes 3 images and then you can combine them together, which is like creating a HDR photo, but it allows you to keep more detail in both the shadows and the highlights. But just be careful if you're shooting in a low shutter speed, because it's going to go even lower again to get the overexposed image. So it depends what the conditions are you're shooting in, but try to do that as often as possible. At least in editing it gives you the option to combine those 3 and retain a bit more detail. Also, I forgot to mention, make sure that you're shooting in RAW. Make sure you select that in the settings, because you have a lot more flexibility when it comes to editing. And we also shoot in a 4:3 aspect ratio for our photos. So those are the main settings that we be thinking about when we're going to take a photo. I'm actually just going to show you a few and run through exactly what I was thinking at the time, how we took the photo, why we chose the settings we chose, and hopefully it just gives you a little bit of an insight into how we take our drone photos and sort of what we'd be thinking at the time. So the first photo is actually this photo of Musselin Temple, probably one of my favorite drone photos that we've got so far. And we kind of had this one planned out a little bit. We knew what it had looked like. We'd seen photos that were kind of similar, and when we got there, we sort of had a half idea already what we wanted to do. So with this one, we wanted to keep it very symmetrical. We wanted the castle or house right at the center, and then the path leading down to Musselin Temple. And we just wanted to make sure that was straight. And it was actually a little bit trickier because the drone was moving a little bit and you would adjust it and then the path would be kind of a little wonky, which was really annoying at the time. But we managed to line it up, and what we did with this one was we done a vertical pano. So I'm combining, I think it was 3 photos, maybe 4 with this one. I took one with the angle facing a bit lower down and then just raised it up each time. So I had a lot more space in the photo, essentially just giving me a wider angle lens sort of perspective of that scene. It also gives you a higher quality photo because you're combining 3 or 4 photos in the same space as just taking one, if that makes sense. So like I said before we took the photo, I set the white balance and made sure to log it. I then set my exposure and logged that as well. And with this one, I wanted to make sure that I kept enough detail in the darker part, which was like the foreground, and then obviously the sun was rising sort of to the right hand side, so that was adding a lot of glow coming in. So I angled it just so that the sun was just out of frame, and then I emphasized that glow a little bit in editing. I think I also did multiple exposures on each shot with this photo, but in the end I think I just chose the middle exposure because that worked. So I combined those 3 photos in Lightroom, tried the edit, and it retained the detail and there wasn't really much noise, so I just went with that, and that's pretty much it. I'm quite happy with how that one turned out. This next example was actually from our last video of the lighthouse down in Dublin along the cliff. With this one, again, I had seen a few shots like this before, so I kind of had a half idea when we got there what we wanted to try, but obviously when you get there, there's a few little things you want to do a little bit different. With this one, I actually took a lot of different photos and stitched them together because there's only so far you can go out into the water with the drone. I didn't want to risk going way too far out and then not being able to get back, so I went quite far out and then took, I think it was like maybe 6 to 9 photos for this one to make sure I got a really wide perspective and was able to get a lot of the water in the foreground and some of the sky and sort of the land in the distance. And the main thing was I wanted to make sure you could see the whole of the island, so like the edge of the land, if that makes sense, and I just about fitted that in, which is kind of what I wanted. Again, did the same thing, locked the white balance, locked the exposure, and with this one I did not do an auto exposure bracket because it was quite a cloudy day and it was quite evenly exposed. So with this one, I just kept with 1 exposure, combined all the photos in Lightroom. And when it comes to combining them, there is 3 different settings. You can pick spherical, cylindrical, and perspective. I actually done 2 different versions of this and I'll put them both on screen now and you can see the difference. And the one I like more is the first one, which I believe was the perspective one. but I'm not sure. It just gives you a totally different sort of look to the photo, even though it is the same images combined. But yeah, sometimes it looks kind of weird and sometimes it can turn out kind of cool. It just depends what you prefer. But I'm really happy with how these photos turned out. And the last example is actually from the same location, and it's a type of photo that we do most of the time. We send the drone up because I just love how they look. They're very minimal, and it's those sort of straight down bird's eye view photos. And we took one of the lighthouse, and I like the little path leading out to the lighthouse, and the lighthouse is kind of the subject of this photo right in the center, and then with the glow kind of the sun coming in at the side. Love how these photos turned out. Most of the time when I'm taking them, I do an auto exposure bracket, because obviously when you're facing down, there isn't going to be any lens flare or anything, and it's always a little bit darker looking straight down, so you have to lower your shutter more, and there is a limit. Like I said, you don't want to be going too low, so I'll maybe do an auto exposure bracket and then combine them so I can bring the detail back a little bit without having to raise the ISO too much. But these shots are quite simple. It's just making sure you get your framing right. And normally with these ones, I just take one photo. I don't really stitch them together, because normally what I see on screen is the exact sort of frame I want. And yeah, that's just normally what I do with these ones. Again, the same things apply. Set the white balance, log it, set the exposure, log it, and do an auto exposure bracket. So you always have the option when it comes to editing if you need it. But anyway, I feel like that is a lot of blabbering for one video, but I know we've got some questions from you guys in previous videos about our drone shots, and you seem to like them, and on Instagram as well we've had a few about how much you like the drone photos and stuff, and it's just something a little bit different. When we're out with our camera, you take so many photos with the camera. It's nice just to send the drone up, get a different perspective, and yeah, just come with photos that you obviously can't even see with your own eye. It's just, there's something cool about it. Some of you may have noticed this photo right here is actually a drone shot. We have a little bit more coming on that in a video or two's time. But anyway, hopefully this one was helpful in some way or other. If you do happen to be in the market for a drone, the DJI Mini 2 is a great little option. Very affordable. It has a few extra updates which are quite nice from the original DJI Mini. I know a lot of the other drones can be quite expensive. Maybe at some point we'll upgrade, but we're happy with the quality of this little drone for both photo and video, and we do intend to use it a lot more going forward. If you do have a drone yourself, or you're thinking of getting one, drop it in the comments below, because it's just interesting to know what you guys use. Do you use it for video? Do you use it for photo? And yeah, just what's it like, because I'm sure at some stage we will upgrade this one, and it's just nice to see what people are using. That is definitely enough blabbering from one video. I'm gonna go finish my tea. If you found this one helpful, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Maybe consider subscribing if you want to see more. And yeah, like I said, this setup's a work in progress. The videos will hopefully from now on be just continuing on as normal, and we're still getting settled in, but lots more to see up here, lots more to take photos of, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, as we always say, take it easy, don't be a stranger. I mean, realistically, my tea is probably freezing. Not great. Not great at all.